Hey everybody, it's Jasmine and I am super excited to get into this review because I recently went to Five Below. According to my receipt, I went on January 4th, so I have been testing all of these products out for you guys, and I found this huge display of brand new Wet n Wild items, and of course I had to buy it and I had to just review it for you guys and tell you guys my honest thoughts and opinions. Now the cool thing is that some of these items are listed on the Wet n Wild website and some aren't, so you guys are kind of getting like a sneak peek from me, and I'm really excited about that. So I have here their brand new 10 pan palettes. These ones retail for $5.99 on the Wet n Wild website, but since I bought it from Five Below, I got it for $5 each. Their brand new mascara, which is called Big Poppa, and it says bigger is better, and this retails for $5.99, but I got it for $5. The next three items are currently not listed on the Wet n Wild website. Maybe it is once this video goes up, but so far, no. So here I have their brand new Cloud Pout. This is their Marshmallow Lip Mousse, and I have the shade Fluffernutter. I got this for $4, and this was probably like the most flattering shade in their entire selection. I saw a lot of pinks, I saw a lot of reds, and I just settled for the nude. I also have here their Mega Last Incognito All Day Full Coverage Concealer. I chose the shade Light Medium. In the display that I saw, I did not see a good variety of shade selection, and I only settled for Light Medium just because I wanted to try the formula. And then the last thing that I have here is a brow gel. This is called their Brow Sessive Brow Shaping Gel, and I just have the shade Brown. I don't know if it just missed dark brown, but it says brown, and I got this one for $3, so relatively affordable for everything that I got. I spent probably like a good $30-ish, $35 on everything that I have here. Just like a lot of my other reviews, I'm going to talk about each individual product, give you their pros and cons if I have any, and I'm also going to show you guys the application. First and foremost, let's go ahead and talk about the Incognito Concealer. I have the shade Light Medium, as I said before, and I really like the coverage of this item because it reminds me so much of the Catrice Liquid Camouflage Concealer. However, the textures of these concealers are very different. I would say that the Wet n Wild Incognito Concealer is very reminiscent to the Fenty Beauty formula. I wouldn't necessarily say that the Wet n Wild one blends easier than Fenty. I just feel like the formula itself is just so comparable. I just think that going on, I just might be a little bit more shook because I noticed that it does not oxidize, leaving me feeling like it works a little bit better than Fenty. But all in all, I still feel like the coverage is pretty much on par with Fenty, if not closer to the Catrice concealer. I think for $4, I think that this is actually a great concealer. I just wish that there were a lot more colors, and I feel like Wet n Wild and a lot of other drugstore brands, they just fail to have shades ranging from super fair to super deep dark and having a lot of different undertones. So unfortunately, even though that the shade selection did really suck, I do like the formula. I don't find that it creases under my eyes after a really long time. I do think that the Light Medium shade has a little bit of peachiness, so as somebody with a yellow undertone, it honestly just cancels out any darkness under my eyes perfectly. Next, let's go into brows. The Brow Sessive Brow Shaping Gel. This honestly isn't my favorite, so I did try to just use this on its own. I know some people are just brow gel and go, so I try to give this like the benefit of the doubt to see how it works on its own as well as over some other brow products, and I think that I like it over other brow products like brow powder or brow pencil because I feel like it fills in more of my sparse areas that way. By itself, it's not super pigmented, so if I were to compare this with, say, the Benefit Gimme Brow, I think the Benefit Gimme Brow does a better job at coating all of my bare brow hairs and making it look a lot fuller. I felt like with this one, the color was a little bit off, so I felt like if I had just worn it by itself, it just wouldn't look right on my, you know, with my hair color because it is so black. But for the most part, I do think it is pretty good. I just feel like it's hard to mess up on a brow gel, but I think considering that it is $3, it's definitely okay. It's not something that I'm going to run back to the store to get. It's just something that'll get you by. Okay, let's talk about the eyeshadow palettes. I'm really excited to talk about this because I have a lot to say. I'm gonna go through the individual palettes and I'm gonna show you the tutorial with the individual palettes, and then I'm going to give you like an overall thoughts and opinions after I talk about all of these. So the first palette that I wanna talk about is the eyeshadow palette that I'm wearing on my eyes today. You know, super simple, but I really do love the color scheme. This is the Call Me Sunshine palette. Now, I feel like this palette is probably the best out of all four. I know, spoiler, but I do think that the golden hues and the warmth of this palette really play well with my skin tone. I think I am so yellow to the point where sometimes some browns just look a little too harsh on my eyes, and even though I do love my dramatic smoky eyes, some days I do want to play it a little softer, and I think that the tones in here really do allow me to go really soft or really bold. However, I do find that the shimmer, the golden shimmer that's the second to the right of the top row, I think that that is like the most chunky shimmer I have ever tried. It's like a wannabe glitter metallic shadow, but it's just so dry and flaky that even with your finger, even with a wet brush, even with a normal brush, like it just does not want to work. I don't know what's going on with that one. So that one was definitely a dud in the palette. So considering that all of the other shimmers worked pretty well, I don't think that they're like the most stunning shimmers. I do think that ColourPop shimmers, if you are comparing it to another accessible, affordable brand, I do think ColourPop shimmers are way better than these ones. But again, for $5, I think that overall it's a really good palette, and you are able to make everything work if you really put your mind to it. But I do think that the mattes in here really do shine through and really make this palette so incredibly special to me. And it is the palette that I recommend you the most, especially if you are somebody who looks like me, who has the same skin tone as me, and who just likes my recommendations. But please note that the shimmers in here are a little bit more dry, but you are able to work with it, especially if your hands are warm and you use your fingers. The next palette that we have here is the one called Nude Awakening. Now this one is going to be your typical neutral palette. I feel like we see a lot of this type of color scheme on the market, and I feel like it is a type of color scheme that is a bestseller for a reason. It's really easy to use, and I like the fact that some of the shades here can be used for my brows. I like that there is a dark black. I like that there are more like creamy shades. I think that the variety that this has is amazing. It goes from like light, medium to like super dark. You do get a few shimmers in here, and I do like this selection a little bit better than the Call Me Sunshine palette. But again, the shimmers are a little bit dry, so it is a little harder to work with, but overall the mattes are super easy to blend. I was really happy with the look that I got out of this palette, and I just think that the only thing I would honestly fix about this palette is the way that the shimmers are formulated. I wish that they were just a little bit softer. I wish that it was just a little bit more like emollient on the fingers, transferring to the eyes, but you know what? $5, we're gonna give her the benefit of the doubt. The next palette that we have here is a cool tone palette, and this one is the shade Lights Off. Now, this palette in particular was a little bit challenging for me. I felt like all of the shimmers were hard to use. I couldn't really use anything aside from the really sheer vanilla creamy shade. I felt like that was the only shimmer that really wanted to show up nicely. And as a matter of fact, I feel like cool tone shadows for me are shadows that I don't like to work with. So being that this was a little hard to work with, I felt like really made the process a lot more difficult for me, but I did end up creating a really stunning look, you know, overall. But I think the real winner in this palette is the green. Unfortunately, there's only one green in here, and that was like the saving grace of this palette. If this palette did not have the green, I would just tell you guys to just skip this like wholeheartedly. But because of the green, I feel like this like is a solid 3 out of 10 for me. I know that's still a really low rating, but I think that this green, you could depot it and put it in a magnetic palette and you'll be set in stone. You'll be good to go. But as far as the rest of the palette, I don't really see myself using it again. I don't really see myself digging for the shimmers because they are really chunky, flaky, and dry, similar to the gold shade that's in the Sunshine palette. I know I told you guys in an anti-haul that I was tired of pink palettes, But this one's actually nice. This one is the Heart and Soul palette, and this one has all variations of pink tones from mattes to shimmers, and I think overall the consistency of all these shadows are through and through really nice. I don't have a shade that I absolutely dislike. I feel like, again, the shimmers could use a little oomph, but I think overall they're all very consistent. So I really like that. I found that the look that I did was like super punchy. It was not patchy at all, which was really, really nice. Sometimes I find that pinks can pick up really weird on the eyes, and I also noticed that after I took off my makeup at the end of the day, I didn't have any staining on my eyelid, which was actually really great considering how bold and pigmented this palette in particular was. I just wish that I was more intrigued with pink palettes, because honestly, every single time I see one, I just am not interested. I am not motivated to use it, but the moment I use it, I'm very satisfied. So I just wish I personally had that motivation to use this palette more, because it is stunning, and I do think that overall the quality is the best out of the 4 palettes that I did review here. Overall, I think that for $6 on the Wet n Wild website, for 10 shades, you know, that's really not that bad. And I do like the mattes in here. So if you are looking for mattes that are pigmented, easy to blend, I do think that you'll really like this. However, I know I talked about the shimmers a lot, but I wish that Wet n Wild had still saved that original formula concoction for these palettes, because the original shimmer formula in their Comfort Zone palette years and years and years ago was honestly the best of the best. I found that those were so pigmented, so shimmery. They literally look so good, not only indoors but outdoors as well. And I just felt like these ones just lacked in quality. So I just wish that they would reel back time to bring out that formula again for these palettes, because it would have honestly made these like a 10 out of 10 for me. So overall, the 2 palettes that I do recommend are the Call Me Sunshine. This is going to be my #1 recommendation. I just love the tones in here. I also do recommend the pink palette. I know, I'm eating my words, but I do think that this is a very solid pink palette. There is not one shade in here that does not perform well. I really do like it. Even though the shimmers are dry, you are still able to work with it beautifully. As far as these 2 palettes, I am just not gravitated to anything like neutral or cool, just in general. I do like the Nude Awakening. I feel like if you are somebody looking for like a naked palette dupe per se, then I think you'll really like this. If you're somebody who's really into like grungy, cool tones, but you know, maybe you need that deep forest green, you might like this palette, the Lights Off palette, really well. Can I tell you guys something really funny to me? One of my first videos that I uploaded on YouTube were of Wet n Wild, and I did like their Mega Last lipstick try on, which is so cringe to watch. And I also did a mascara roundup review. And I just can't believe that those videos are still being watched to this day. Like, it's so cringe to me. But out of all of the mascaras that I've tried from Wet n Wild, I could genuinely say that this Big Poppa one is probably my favorite, because it builds up really nice, it doesn't smudge, it adds length and volume, and it just holds that curl all day long. I think it's really crazy that a lot of my older videos are being viewed, but not my newer ones. It's just really weird to me, but I digress. I really do like this mascara, and I am just solely wearing it today. And even though I have really small lashes, you guys can see them, and that's very rare for a mascara to do. So I am very pleased with this mascara. Just overall, I love the way it looks. I love the way it builds on the lashes. I think my only con is that the brush is fairly large for me, but I think I can make it work. I haven't had any messy application yet. I am very careful when I do apply it, because I am noticing the larger wand, so I want to avoid any mess. But you know, I feel like so far my lashes look really good, so I highly recommend that, especially if you have a similar lash to me where it's very thin. It has a little bit of curl already, but you just need that extra oomph to your lash. Finally, let's go ahead and talk about the Cloud Pout. Again, the shade that I have is Fluffernutter, and I don't know how I feel about this, honestly. I think my lips look really good for what it is, but it's really weird because this texture, this formula, is almost like a gloss hybrid with the NYX Soft Matte Lip Cream. It's really interesting, and when they say it's a marshmallow lip mousse, they really do mean it. It's really lightweight, it's very fluffy, and it feels very velvety on the lips, but as you see on my lips right here, it doesn't look like it's giving off a lot of pigment, even though it is. Also, I find that it gives you like a butthole mouth a little bit, not a whole bunch, but if I look closely in the mirror, it's like starting to separate where my natural lines are. So it's starting to gather in those fine lines. So it's not that cute, you know, when you look up close, but it is comfortable to wear. I think that if I were to realistically wear this for long term, like all day, I would wear this on top of a regular liquid lipstick just so that I could get the pigment of this down and to have that moussey texture, but without it getting all buttholey, you know what I mean? If I'm just speaking honestly, I would just skip over the Cloud palette. If you already have anything that's a moussey texture, or if you even have a lot of the NYX Soft Matte Lip Creams, just use those. Those are just a much better formula than the Cloud Pout. And it was a little bit of a waste of $4 in my opinion. I could have definitely lived without it, but yeah, it was good to try. You know, the marshmallow claim, that really sparked my interest, which is why I got it in the first place. So I think that wraps up my review for today. Thank you guys for watching yet another review. I am so happy I was able to stumble upon these right before they launched. I honestly felt like I was that bee. Like when I bought these, they were barely even starting to promote the big Poppa. They did not have any of this on their website. So I just felt like the one, you know what I mean? So I was able to test these out for a few weeks for you guys, and I hope that my review was a little bit helpful in case you were eyeing some of these items, or in case you were thinking of getting some new makeup for the new year. As always, I hope you guys have a good day today, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye! Peace out, Girl Scouts.